Hi, I'm Joe Connolly. And when I thought about who would be the best person to tell us what trends will affect small and mid sized businesses in the new year, our guest was the first name that came to mind Bill Aulet, Managing Director of the Martin Trust Center for Entrepreneurship at MIT. The first time I heard Bill speak, he said entrepreneurs have the mindset of a pirate and the skill set of a Navy SEAL. And I said, we have to have him on. Producer Neil Carousso will join us with some questions as well. Bill, it is good to see you again. What's the biggest change you see coming down the pike?
Well, first of all, that the Boston Celtics are going to win the NBA championship. That's the most important one. And but secondly, that as I talked to you last time, the world will not get slower; it will only get faster and faster. And that is the biggest change: is that the rate of change is increasing. And by the way, it's a pleasure to be back on with you, Joe and Neil. I remember growing up and listening to 880, the news radio station, many years ago. You know,
We're still here and still changing. But, what does that increasing rate of change mean not to the customers, but to the people who are running the business?
Look, it means, first of all, you better have the mindset that change is a thing that's positive, not negative. If you think it's negative, you're going to die because change is going to keep coming faster and faster. You have to embrace it, not fight it. And then every time there's a change, you got to go out and get in front of it and say, what does this mean? For instance, right now, we were talking about this before the show started, is right now, the biggest thing going on in our world at the tip of the spear of business is this thing called Chat GPT. It's something that was released 2 weeks ago by OpenAI, Open Artificial Intelligence Organization. And it's a chat bot that allows you to ask it a question and it gives you an answer like it's a human. But it's a human that's smarter than any human you've ever met. And they can do it in 30 seconds and they're unbiased. And so when you think about that, you just go in and try this thing. It makes so many things obsolete. It's like the first time I saw a spreadsheet. First time I saw a spreadsheet, I just said, my God, why are we teaching people to add, do multiplication tables, add things? Computers do that better than humans. What do we need to do now? And you have to learn that. And we had to learn, if you want to be a great business person, you had to not deny spreadsheets. You had to think about, how do I use, Lotus 123, VisiCalc, whatever it was, to be Excel today, to be successful. And so the biggest thing for business people, small business, is understand change. Don't fight it. Figure out, when you see something new, sit down, talk to your kids, talk to somebody else and say, how does this affect my business? And do it before the other people do it. Use change as a competitive advantage for you because you have the right mentality. You don't fear change, you embrace change.
What percent of the time, Bill, might that change put you, the business owner, out of business?
Well, it might not be every time, but cumulatively I would say over the course of 2 or 3 years, it's going to put you out of business at a greater than 50% rate. If you didn't embrace computers, if you didn't embrace Shopify, if you didn't embrace the payment systems that you have today, you couldn't take credit cards, you'd be out of business. But that stuff is happening now faster and faster and faster than it did in the past. In the old days, I just did this talk with keynote in Korea about how the rate of change, like when I started in the 1980s, you could see IBM slowly dying. But then once Microsoft kind of took over, then Microsoft died faster, and then Google took over. And then after them, companies, your shelf life just decreases over time.
All right. So now that I know I have 2 or 3 years to understand AI, I'm going to turn it over to Neil for some questions.
I'd be careful, Joe. You don't have 2 or 3 years to understand AI. You got to get some young, smart buck like Neil to explain it to you right now.
AI seems daunting, Bill.
That's what he does, but it's with basic software sometimes, Bill. Go ahead, Neil.
If you only knew what goes on behind the scenes. So, Bill, good to see you again. And, you're around young people every day. So you're around young entrepreneurs at MIT. What are the new businesses that you see starting now as we delve into 2023?
Yeah. What's really interesting is you would think by looking at the newspapers that the new businesses are FTX, Samuel Bankman-Fried, and that is not correct. Most of our businesses are lined up over solving significant problems of society. And when you say young people, Neil, I think you mean people like myself who look young, but but I think you mean so the young people who are in college, and those people we just did a 10-year analysis of it, and 89% of those young people are working on goals aligned with the UN Sustainability Initiative. So this idea of Samuel Bankman-Fried doing his thing, that is the exception. Someone who's just profiteering. That's the exception as to what our students are doing. More often, they're like Mariana Mattis and Nusha Gailey, people who aren't tech bros doing that. They're actually solving the problem of how do we identify when COVID or Zika virus or now polio shows up in a city, in a region, with a company like BioBot Analytics. That's the kind of stuff that young people are starting, and it gives me great hope, because we as a society face great challenges. Will we still need the bodega on the corner? Will we still need an IT service company? Yes, but those things are supporting some of these other companies that are growing to really look at big problems facing society, and that's what they're working on here at MIT.
That kind of reminds me of what Mark Cuban told us this past fall, that a lot of young people are looking at businesses with a social mission, and that seems to be the future.
Absolutely. We start off, the first thing when people come in, we don't say, what's your product? We don't even say, what's your idea? We say, what's your raison d'etre? By the way, I'm not French, but that's a French phrase that means reason for existence. Why are you starting this company? Because if they're just starting it to make money, it won't last, because no company just goes up and makes money all the time. It goes up, it goes down. And if people are just there to make money, they'll leave when it goes down. And that's when you need them the most. So there better be this really strong reason why you're starting the company that's more than just money.
Bill, last question. What are some of the practices and ways of businesses that have 50, 100, a couple of hundred employees that businesses with 10 or 20 employees can adapt?
Yeah. One of the most interesting things going on in entrepreneurship right now is the change in sales. Change in sales. It used to be, I have a product and I hire a salesperson and we go out and do it. I have a son who's based in Brooklyn. He started a company. He's doing millions and millions of dollars the first year. I said, how many salespeople do you have? He said, none. Why? Because they're using technology to do that now. And if you think about this, you talked about AI, Joe, and we said, well, AI only applies to certain areas. AI is going to be everywhere. It's going to be ubiquitous. And we used to say, well, look, computers can't do chess. That's too subtle for them. Wrong. They blow it out in chess. Well, computers can't understand music. Well, actually, they can, and we use Spotify. Well, computers don't understand human feelings, like how do you find your lifetime mate? More than half the young people today, Joe, are going to find their lifetime partners through online AI-based services. And so sales using technology and sales and AI is the way for the future for these people. And there are a lot of companies out there that can help them with that, be it Spotify not Spotify, Shopify, Klaviyo, a whole bunch of other ones that can help you in that. And you have to figure out how can you use technology to acquire customers in a cheap way, because it's very expensive to have humans do that.
So then again, last question, what will the employees do? Your son has all these, he has no salespeople, huh? Is that good? That's not good for the economy, right?
No, the economy's changed. We don't have any, We don't have any horse and buggy makers anymore.
Right.
What happens over society is you change to do new jobs. You change to customer success jobs. I would prefer to have someone help me to make this new phone work rather than have someone call me up and bug me to buy it. So I think it's a healthy progression, Joe. Again, you cannot fear change. You have to embrace it. And now I just have to, speaking of one change, I just have to make sure it's clear. I am the Ethernet Inventors Professor at MIT of Entrepreneurship.
And the next time we have you on, we'll have you explain that.
And we'll post your full resume at WCBS880.com.
This is why I asked Bill Aulet from MIT to come on to start us off. Bill, it's great to talk to you. It always is. Thanks.
I love seeing you guys, and I love New York. Take care,
Thanks,
Neil,
Bill.
and take care, Joe, and Feliz Navidad, and happy holidays to everybody.